using a DSLR after a long time. Wow. Well, when I started out photography, way back in the mid-80s, I was a wedding photographer. My first camera was a Pentax MX with a 50mm lens. Then I upgraded to a Canon AE1 Super, again with a 50mm lens, and then went to a Nikon. I don't remember which one it was, but another 50mm lens it had. 50mm was the most commonly used lens. I used to cover the entire wedding with 50mm lens, and later I realized that the 50mm was called the Nifty 50 because first thing, it was probably the most commonly available one, and it was the most cost-effective one with the widest aperture. 1.8 I think was the most popular one, and all the other lenses were comparatively more expensive, and hence the 50mm became very popular. The 50mm also reproduces an image exactly like your eye sees it, so that was another reason why it was popular for a beginner for sure. As my professional photography life improved, I started feeling the necessity of other lenses besides the 50mm lens too. And I chanced upon a 35mm lens, which I really fell in love with. And for me, that 35mm was much more useful than my 50mm. It's a personal opinion, all right. And even while using a zoom lens, I saw myself using the 35mm more than the other, focal lengths of the zoom lens. Well, then the digital era began, and for some reason, the whole lensing, options changed. You had the 16-35, you had the 24-70 and the 70-200. It used to be very different during the film era. You had, I think, the 35-70, and you have the 80-200 and things like that were more popular during the film era. As I progressed, I started shifting more towards prime lenses, and again 35 continued to be one of my most favorite lens. In this video, I like to showcase to you one 35mm lens, which I would like to actually call Nifty 35. Well, today I have a special lens with me. It is called SP. I think it's because it's a special lens. A 35mm 1.4 lens is the DI USD series from Tamron. These days, 24 megapixel is the most commonly available camera resolution. 36 and 47 and 50 and 60 are also very common. Besides that, the full frame digital cameras allow you to crop into your frames too, which means a 35mm can be true 35mm. On a 1.2 crop, it can be 40 plus, and a 1.5 or a 6 can be 50 plus, which means you can effectively have more than one lens with one lens. Well, you know what I mean. And I'm using a Nikon D850, one of my most favorite cameras here in Pixel Village. So why Tamron? Tamron has been traditionally making lenses for almost all brands of cameras. This 35mm lens from the SP series gives you an option to still go for a 35 1.4 lens without compromising on quality. So what we're going to do is to go and do a small experiment. I think if you've seen our previous Tamron lens reviews, we have a small, very basic setup in the studio, and we will talk about this 35mm in detail. The experts test the lenses in the lab using probably more than a dozen parameters, and we are no experts and this is not a lab. What we're trying to do is, we have some basic setups that we have kind of cooked up with our rookie understanding of optics. What we're going to worry about is some of the very basic characteristics, that we need to worry about. One is edge sharpness. Next is vignetting in various apertures. Then distortion and fringing. And if there is any color biases for the optics. That's what we will worry about when we do our homegrown test in this video. We downloaded those targets. They are called targets. We downloaded it from a website. I have added the link to that website in the description. You also can go there, download those targets and do your own test at home. For the test today, we're going to use a Nikon D850. Tamron SP 35mm f1.4 is mounted on it, and we're going to shoot the entire range of apertures available in the lens. Of course, in aperture priority mode. The ISO is set to the minimum, which is 64 in the 850. The color temperature is measured using a color spectrometer, and it is keyed in so that we are, very sure about the whiteness, and if there is a color bias that is in the lens, which is innately in the lens, then we will be able to see that. And what else? I am overexposing it a little bit so that the white comes through as white. All right, let's do the shoot now. Few precautions that I'd like to mention to you that we have taken here to minimize any shake is that we're going to shoot in mirror up mode, and because it's a DSLR, and we're going to shoot it in self-timer mode. It's believed that the tripod actually takes about 8 to 10 seconds before it actually stabilizes the image. These are, Puritan stocks. I am also using a remote trigger. I'm not touching the camera at all. So basically the idea is to minimize any vibrations. I'm hoping that there is no vibration coming through because of, it's an office building. And of course, the focus is also locked in manual mode. So nothing other than the shutter speed will change, along with the aperture. All right. So the first shot, here we go at 1.4, 64 ISO. It's 10 seconds self-timer time. There you go. The first shot is taken. Let me take the entire set of shots while you go and get a coffee. Now that we have finished shooting the entire, series of exposures, we're going to take a look at these images critically on a large screen. And then we will put this lens to a real-life test. We'll do a small portraiture shot, some candid shots, and also look at how well the bokeh is. It's very important for us. And how good is the focus fall off is. So stay tuned till the end. Well, I'm really enjoying this Tamron 35-1.4. In fact, I have used almost all 35-1.4s available for Nikon, and this one really at the top of the game, and I don't see any compromise made at any point. Well, this particular lens is actually a 40th anniversary edition of the SP series.
Well, the SP35, the 40th anniversary, is also codenamed as, I think, F045. A little trivia. Well, I also understand that Tamron would like to call this the ultra performance lens, and I don't see any reason why it should not be called as an ultra performance lens, because it's got a built to last feel to begin with. Okay, and when I look at those images, I keep telling this word kadak. You know, it's a very Indian way of expressing fantastic quality. So all in all, I really like this lens, and I would definitely recommend this lens to a wedding photographer, street photographer. I might even repeat it in the video sometime later too, because I like this very much. So let me get into the remainder of the shoot and take some more images. All right, I see you soon.
Now let's look at the images that we shot with this fantastic lens. Okay, first the images of the test chart. Vignetting first. All right, let's look at these images, and I see vignetting happening at 1.4 and gradually decreasing from 2 onwards, and 2.8 onwards it disappears. It's optics, right? I mean, the 1.4 or the maximum wide opening is likely to have a little vignetting, which will go away the moment you apply the profile correction. So if you want to keep it, because you know that is also an effect, I usually add a little bit of vignetting to, you know, attract the viewer's attention to the center of the image. If you don't want it, enable the profile correction and it will disappear, along with few other things like distortion, etc. Now let's talk about edge sharpness. Now when I look at the edge sharpness here, at 1.4 the lens is very sharp, and it improves at f2. At f2.8 it's better, f4 is nice, and 5.6 also is very nice. f8 onwards the sharpness suffers a little bit. Now this again is optics, it's common for almost all lenses. The aperture that will give you the best resolution usually lies somewhere in the middle, close to the middle of the aperture range. Here it is, the 2.8 f4 seems to be to me the sharpest aperture. Of course, as you know, if the aperture is wide, then of course you will lose depth of field. So if you must have depth of field, of course you have to use the 8, 11 and 16. The resolution is not bad, but if what you're looking is absolute sharpness on the model or your subject only, and you don't care about the depth at all, then I would personally recommend this lens to be shot wide open. And of course, you can go up to 1.4, which to give you that, you know, silky smooth, but yet highly resolved images. And those full open, big wide apertures like the 1.2 and the 1.4 is very popular among the wedding photographer, because they'd like to show the bride, and you know, I mean, they'd like to show the ring, there is the eyes. I mean, they'd like to work with that shallow depth of field and that beautiful bouquet all around. So yes, at 1.42, it is a very highly resolved lens. Let's look at the center sharpness now. This is the 1.4, 2, 2.8, 5.6. At 8, you start seeing a little, loss in sharpness due to obvious, limitations of optics in general. But great sharpness at the middle throughout the aperture range. What else? I don't see any color biases. The color reproduction is brilliant. If you look at the Macbeth chart and the white to black, this graduation, you don't see any color biases at all. It's brilliantly rendered. What else? Yeah, of course, distortion. Well, it is a wide angle lens, okay, 35 mm. It is likely to have a little distortion at the edges only. Not apparent all the time, but if I lay a grid over it, it is there, I can see it, but the moment you apply the lens correction, it disappears. So it's a brilliant lens from the point of view of sharpness, vignetting, color rendition, distortion, and all that. I think a wedding photographer, a candid, photographer, a street photographer, all who are using DSLR lenses. It's available, by the way, available for Canon and Nikon as well. And they both will really like this lens. And the SP stands for super performance. So they have not compromised. I mean, Tamron has not compromised on any of those promises about quality. It is a superbly performing lens. They also have some special coating to prevent reflection, and also have another fluorine coating over it to improve the life of the front element, because the front element is the one which is in contact with the elements. What else? It's a very well built lens, and we will also take a look at the bokeh when it is minimum focused, because that's a time you get these lovely bokehs. We'll do that here now, and also take a small video shot. We also tested for flare and performance with strong backlight. Now, besides all this, Tamron has priced this lens very attractively, and it's been around for some time, and now for a limited period they are offering 4-year warranty on this lens, which makes this lens even more attractive. If I have to speak about one disadvantage about this lens, is that it's a little heavier than, let's say, a Nikon's original 35mm lens. But look at the plight of the mirrorless, camera lenses. The body has become smaller. I mean, that's what at least they claim. But the lenses have become, very bulky and heavy. But, well, that's the way things are moving. So, I'm not making a critical comment here, but, you must also consider that when I speak about this lens weight. So, all in all, a super performer. I think the wedding photographer will definitely like it, because by using different crop modes in your full frame camera, you can convert this into different type of lenses and yet not compromise on the quality of the bokeh, because you're only cropping into the image, and the bokeh nature or the bokeh quality will remain exactly the same. We also have a few more Tamron lenses in the studio, so we will bring those reviews very soon. So stay tuned. See you soon. Stay safe.